Welcome to day 12. Can you believe it? It's day 12. And we are in Psalms 1. We're in Psalms 1. The big idea, let me tell you. Psalms 1 contrasts two ways of living, and we're going to dive deep in that. So I pray that this message meets you at a good place in your day, that you are doing well, and that you are ready to receive some good words of God. So Psalms 1 is it's very simple, right? But sometimes hard to follow. So Psalms 1 kind of identifies two separate ways of living: a life rooted in God and his word, and then a life shaped by ungodly influences, right? So this psalm teaches us to pay attention to what influences us, what we meditate on, uh, where we are planting, and what kind of fruit our lives produce. So in Psalms verse 1 through 2, it says, watch, it's watching for the voices that we listen to, is basically what it's saying. So it begins with a warning about walking in the counsel of the wicked. So this progression can be pictured as walk, stand, sit, right? Let me explain this. What begins as listening can begin as it can become an agreement, and an agreement can become a place of comfort or habit. That's what that walk, stand, sit means. So everybody who gives you advice does not necessarily have the authority to define what God is doing in your life. Even sincere people can speak their own experience, fears, and limitations or understandings upon you. And sometimes because we love them, we trust them. Not everybody's discernment is up to par. Some people really, really lean on flesh. And you have to learn to discern the difference. You need a spiritual, godly discernment, not a flesh thing. So we got to ask ourselves sometimes, who gets the opportunity to cancel me, right? So here's an example. Imagine that God placed on your heart that you believe he's, leading you towards something. And then you tell somebody. And that person says, that's not going to happen. You don't have the qualifications. They ain't going to approve you, girl. They ain't going to approve you, boy. Right? You have to do it this way. Come on, be realistic. That ain't ever going to work. Those statements may, that person would have said to you, may describe what that person has seen before, right? Maybe it didn't work out for them. But that does not automatically describe what God can do for you. So if we repeatedly listen to those voices, you may begin to stop believing in God because you're leaning on man. God doesn't give like the world. Stop going to everybody, letting everybody counsel you when oftentimes they don't have the clue. Seek the kingdom first in everything that you do. I done got hyped up because I experienced this. I have experienced this so many times in my life. We cannot let other people's flesh lead us somewhere that God, somewhere in our mind that God doesn't want us to be. People do that. People will put their fears on you. I've had people, even very close to me, speaking death. Anything that's going on, they want to say that something bigger and scarier is going to happen based on their perception. uh, you know, based on how they feel, based on something that they went through. Stop letting people put fear on you. Stop letting people put their burdens on you that are unbiblical. So the enemy does not always have to convince you or me that God isn't real. Sometimes he only has to convince you that God said that something wasn't possible for you when he never even said that. God didn't say that. So what are you feeding as we move to verse 2? The blessed person delights in God's word and meditates on it day and night. The answer to ungodly influence is to simply stop listening to what everybody's got to say. You got to replace wrong voices with God's truth. Let me give you an example. Some people might say you can't, that's impossible, they won't approve you. Be realistic. That ain't happening. But what did God say? Is it impossible for God? Is it giving God glory? Is human approval my ultimate source? Am I measuring this only by human limitations? You got to ask yourself those things, right? I could go on and on teaching this today. Planted, not pushed, as we move to verse 3. The righteous person is compared to a tree planted by streams of water. A tree planted has roots. It's not simply moved around by every wind. It's not simply moved around by every wind. You get that? You don't have to be violated, by every person. You don't have to go to somebody and get validation. By every person, every organization, every system, every circumstance in order to be established by God. A tree does not need everybody's permission to grow. All it needs is roots, and it's in there. It's growing. It's taking off. Right? Stop measuring your calling by other people's reactions. Whether you are planted in God's word, right? Obedient to his directions, allowing him to develop your roots before revealing the fruit. Fruit comes in season. Psalms 1 says, the planted person bears fruit in its season. That means that every season will not look the same, guys. There are seasons of planting, rooting, growing, pruning, waiting, and producing. A delayed fruit is not necessarily this denied fruit. Sometimes God is developing the root system before he reveals the fruit, right? In Psalms 1, verses 4 through 6, it's planted versus scattered. So the wicked are compared to chaff, right? Chaff, sorry. So that is the wind that drives away. It's a contrast of striking, meaning that the righteous are planted, the wicked are scattered all over the place, right? So when our identity is based on people's opinions, every change in opinion can move us. But when our identity is deeply rooted in God, they said no, right? This other person. It does not automatically mean that God is going to say no. He's got the final say. So Psalms verse 6 reminds us that the Lord knows the way of the righteous. He knows the road, the process, the unseen. He knows the destination. Too many people go by all these different rules and policies and all this other stuff, and they don't have no clue how God's hand is on you. They don't have no clue how God's hand is on you. They do not. So not every voice deserves access to your faith. We're going to do a series on that soon. People can only speak from what they know, right? What they done heard. But God speaks from what he truly knows. So the question is not, does everybody agree with what I'm believing? No. Does what I does what I'm believing agree with what God has said? So reflective questions is that who or what has been influencing the way that you have been seeing your future? Have I allowed someone else's limitations become my limitations? That happens so much. What voices do I need to stop giving authority to? It could be your closest family member, always trying to discourage you to do something that God actually told you to do. Where is God asking you to become more deeply rooted in? And what fruit may God be developing in you during this season? So here's a declaration we can speak over ourselves. I will not allow the limitations of somebody else to become a limit of my faith. I will be planted in God's word, rooted in his truth, and I will be led by his voice and not man. I will not be moved by everybody's opinion or everybody's perspective of what they think would have happened. Oh, well, this didn't work out for this person. God ain't going to let that happen for you. They don't know how. They don't know you. They don't know God's will for you. I'm trusting God's time, and I'm not trusting what you got to say. I'm trusting God's direction. I'm trusting his ability to bring forth fruit in my season. Say that right now. I am trusting God's ability to bring forth fruit in my season. Not based on what Sally, Sue, Randall, Rudolph, whoever, not based on how they see things, but how you know your father is, how you know your father gives, how you know your father sees, how you know your father flows. Too many times in my life, I have let people's burdens rest on my soul, hindering me from doing what I already heard God tell me to do. I'm going to do whatever I'm called to do. I don't care about other people's opinion. If God told me to do something, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to trust that he's going to carry me through. I am not going to trust man. Period. Sometimes your own close family relatives can steer you away from what God has called you to do. Get in that secret place. Don't get on the phone. Don't go in an email, typing away, telling everybody your business all the time. You sit back and plan with God. Allow him to tell you what he wants you to do, right? He's not going to steer you wrong, I promise you. It was a situation that I did. It was something that I did a few years ago and was even told I shouldn't do it ever again. That is not, that is not, they can control that, right? What I did was something so beautiful that gave God so much glory, and it changed my life completely. And I knew that God told me to do it because it was so many things that he revealed to me that nobody could understand. I'm never going to listen to man before I seek my father, right? I'm always going to go seek counsel from my father, and I'm going to listen to him, and I'm not going to allow anybody else's fears to be placed on me just because they would never do it. Some people will say, oh, because they would never do something, or sorry, I'm moving my laptop around, but because they may not ever do something or blah, 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 they try to put that on you. Well, I've taught about this before, and it gets me amped up because it's so many times that I have been in certain situations where people have tried to put their fears and limitations on me and speak so much negativity to where you start to question yourself. You start to feel scared and discouraged. But then you would have remembered when you were in your secret place that God opened up so much revelation to show you, like he showed you clear, plain as day what to do. But then you got somebody in your ear, oh, I would never do that. You don't need to do that. Don't do that again. You are not my God. I serve my God in heaven. Ain't no God in human form here that I'm going to be serving except my God in heaven. So I hope this encourages you. Walk in righteousness. Not everybody deserves to know all your stuff. Stop telling everybody everything. Stop going to everybody before you go to God. Stop believing the lies. Stop listening for everybody else's reaction and getting everybody's opinions on things. It can get you hemmed up. And they'll be fine. They're doing their own thing or whatever. Right? And then you done missed the blessing. You done missed the direction because you getting tied up with somebody that wanted to put their limitations on what they would never do or what they don't believe in on you when God already told you to do it. Dangerous. It's one thing to have someone's best interest, but it's another thing to be ungodly, to be an ungodly counsel, to be seeking things from somebody that is being ungodly, right? Like, you got to learn to discern. We all have to learn to discern, right? So I love you. We'll be back for day 13. Woo! We almost halfway, right? We got all the way to the 31st. So I love you all. I hope this message ministered to you. If you ever want to, um, find out about the other Christian resources that we have here, always click the link. I would click the link every video in our link tree and see some of the exciting things that we're doing here on this side. So I love you all. Stay blessed. And I pray that this meets you at a time that, even if things are rough, but I pray that this reaches you to where it will encourage you to keep going and not give up. Okay. I love you all. Stay blessed. I will see you all tomorrow. Love you.